Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I continue my series on the clans of Legend of the Five Rings by talking about the Unicorn Clan, the last of the original 7 great clans. The Unicorn were the wanderers out in the world. They went out with the job to find out about what else was out there and report back one day about the dangers facing Rokugan itself. And they were gone for about 800 years. And then they came back and things were a little weird. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about the Unicorn Clan. The Unicorn Clan, unlike other clans, is not defined by their stories. Or at least not in their stories the same way as the other clans. Instead, they are defined by their history. And this history begins with Lady Shinjo going forth into the Shadowlands by herself to confront and interrogate Fu Lang, to find out why her brother was doing what he was doing. And unfortunately, she ended up being captured for a time. And it was not until the Thunders faced Fu Lang that she got released. After the defeat of Fu Lang, when Hante was handing out assignments, Lady Shinjo put forth that her job should be to go forth and explore, to find out what dangers were out there that they don't know about, so that those would not surprise them. Hante argued against this, but was eventually swayed. Lady Shinjo gathered her followers, let them know that their vows of fealty to her were being released, that they could go serve others if they so wished. And she was followed by 3 of her families. They chose to follow her of their own free will without being forced to by vows of fealty. The Otaku, the Ide, and the Iuchi. And before Lady Shinjo left, she visited each of her brothers and sisters, and each of them gave her something or taught her something that she would need to know going out into this unknown wilderness to the north. One of the things that she was given was a fan. Lady Doji gave her this fan so that when they returned, they would be known. And Hante gave them a mirror. It had a mate that would be in the Imperial Palace. And the purpose of this mirror was, if you held it in your hands and someone else was holding it in their hand at the same time, you could communicate through these 2 mirrors. And these were intended as a way for the unicorn to continue giving reports. And then the unicorn went to the north. Went through the northern passes and away from the Empire. The first hurdle they encountered was the deserts, the burning sands. And it took them a long time to pass through them. When they passed through the deserts, they came into this area of steppes. And a group of bandits and raiders called the Ujikai saw them. Saw these people, these strangers, dressed in funny clothes, coming out exhausted, weakened by their time in the desert. And these people thought, hey, you know what the best thing we can do with these people is? Raid them and steal their stuff. It didn't work out that way. Though weakened by the time in the desert, the Kyrene clan, as it was called at this time, was still very capable of defending themselves. It's said that Shinjo herself accounted for 30 by herself, while her 3 followers, Iuchi, Otaku, and Ide, totaled between them 50 of these bandits. And so the reaction from the Ujikai was, wow, these people fight really, really well. We probably want to learn how to do this. Maybe we should swear fealty to them. And a large number of the Ujikai went to the unicorn, and Lady Shinjo spent a whole night interviewing them before they were adopted into the Kyrene family, the Kyrene clan. And it was a case of the Kyrene were teaching them their ways of combat, their ways of engaging with the spirits, while the Ujikai were teaching them about how to survive in the steppes, how to, what the other peoples out there were like. All those things that they didn't know. And the Kyrene adopted the Ujikai's nomadic lifestyle. The not building any permanent settlements, living in tents, always on the move type attitude. Because it was the best way to survive in that environment. And they spent a long time in the steppes, learning how to survive in them, before continuing on. They would next encounter a group of sorcerers in a city. Iuchi would be the one to go in there to investigate this, because they understood these could be a threat, because they had heard not nice tales about these sorcerers. And while Iuchi was able to verify that, yeah, these weren't good people, no, we can't beat them, he came back with something very important. A book of names. This book of names was names of spirits. This would form the basis later on for Meishodo, the unicorn's unique naming magic. Right now, it was just something new. An interesting point is that when Lady Shinjo tried to read this book, it was literally putting her to sleep. And she realized that it was not meant for one of divine blood, that it was something that only mortals could read, could understand, and could implement. Which is why she gave Ayuchi the order to do with it what you will. And which led to the eventual development of Meishodo. And they continued this way. Going on and on. Stopping in various places, dealing with various things. At one point, they passed through a pass, and defending themselves, they used two strong combat magics that caused an avalanche behind them, sealing off the way that they had come back to the Burning Sands, back to Rokugan. And they had to continue on. And several years down the line, they come to an oasis. Lady Shinjo sees something in the oasis. A glimmering white form. And she goes to investigate, telling her people to wait there. She would be back. For 7 nights she was gone. When Lady Shinjo returned, she was pregnant. And as the months passed, she eventually gave birth to her 5 children. Now, unlike other kami, her children had the ability to change forms. And 4 of them would eventually choose and settle into the forms of horses, while 1 would take the form of a human. And this was because for the first few years of their life, they were able to switch forms however they chose, but eventually they had to choose. They had to choose 1 form to live the rest of their lives in. 4 of them chose the form of horses. 1 chose human. And the one that chose human would become the progenitor of the Shinjo family through the Unicorn Clan. The 4 that chose to be horses, they, along with the horses that the otaku brought from a period that they had spent in captivity, would form the lines of the unicorn war mounts, especially the mounts of the otaku battle maidens. And from there, things happen. The mirror had to be split into 4 parts so that the tribe and so the clan could continue to explore, because they were also trying to find their way back. And so it was a way for them to keep communicating. And eventually, their mirrors all lit up, with Lady Shinjo calling them all to where she was. This was a deep, dark castle at the edge of the Shadowlands. And in this castle, Lady Shinjo disappeared fighting it. She had directed her people to break through, get away, while she and a number of other followers remained behind and attacked. Now, after the oasis, she had made a promise to her clan that while she would leave them at times, she would always return. And so there is this belief that the Lady Shinjo will return one day, because she promised she would return. But with her disappearance, the current head of the Shinjo family, her grandson at this point, looked around, looked at the clan and said, "You are something entirely different now. You are no longer the Kirin. We are now the Unicorn." And thus renamed the clan. And again, they continued exploring around, keeping away from the area where Shinjo had died. Had presumably died, I should say. But after several generations, the Uchi mirror lit up, with Shinjo appearing to it, telling them to return to Rokugan. The way is through the Shadowlands. And that after they have returned to Rokugan will be when she will be able to return to them. And so the unicorn rode through the Shadowlands. And the first portions, they were dealing with what they were calling the living darkness, were different from the Rokugani Shadowlands. This part of the Shadowlands, the jade did not get corrupted. There was no evidence of taint, just a pervasive evil through the lands. And they were dealing with a constant attack. And they would have to be watching their people for them, their eyes and tongues turning black, meaning that the living darkness had gotten a hold of them. And then they moved into the Shadowlands proper, where everyone else knows the Shadowlands proper. It is said a great cheer went up when they encountered some goblins in samurai armor, because that's when they knew they were finally starting to get close to Rokugan. As they were marching, as they were fighting their way through both sections of the Shadowlands, they were always dealing with these threats. But as they were going through the classic Shadowlands, a Hiruma scout saw them. What the Hiruma scout saw was a great army in purple, flying purple banners with mons and heraldry they'd never seen before. So this scout went back and reported what he saw. As the unicorn approached the Great Carpenter Wall, they were struck with awe at the sheer engineering of it. And then they started getting attacked by the crab. So the unicorn fell back out of the range of the crab weaponry, especially the crab siege weaponry, and started working down the wall. When they got to the end of the wall, the crab had gathered an army to stop them. And the unicorn looked at the army and said, "Charge!" And they rode through the crab, straight through the crab, riding through the crab lines, through the crab lands, up into Scorpion territory. The Scorpion got the Lion and the Crane and other clans to send people to help defend, because, hey, these people got past the Crab. They gotta be good, right? And the Scorpion kind of watched them. And a Phoenix met them under a flag of truce and found out the evidence of what happened and then reported to the Emperor at the time. The Emperor took a year to deliberate. So this was a year that the Unicorn were stomping butt. Because the Unicorn really were doing better in combat against the Lion than the Lion were doing against them. Mostly because the Unicorn were using highly mobile tactics and using superior mounts. So a year after this, the Emperor sends the order out that hostilities against the Unicorn are to cease, that they are to be recognized as a great clan, and eventually given back their lands up in the north of the Empire. And that is really the Unicorn. They are hard to wrap up in a nutshell. They are different from all the other clans. And to really go into that, I'm going to take a bit to talk about some of their more unique customs. The Unicorn are distinct culturally from the rest of Rokugan. First off, they wear leather. They wear clothes made from furs. The rest of Rokugan see this as unclean meat as clothing. But for the Unicorn, this is practical. This is what they know. They still keep the accents, the differences in their speech. The rest of Rokugan goes, "Why can't you speak properly?" While the Unicorn are, "What do you mean? This is how we always talk." And, they keep their own holidays that they picked up either from important events or from the peoples that they interacted with. The rest of Rokugan, this is dishonoring your ancestors. But this is the Unicorn. This is how they travel. These are all the things that were believed important by their ancestors. Because remember, many of the Fortune's holidays sprang up after the Unicorn left. But the Unicorn, they've got a few other unique foibles. They put as much emphasis on the scimitar as they do on the katana. And in fact, many a Unicorn will carry a scimitar instead of a katana. They put the emphasis on the wakizashi. But, they live fairly nomadic still. They don't have any permanent settlement. Even their permanent settlement is more here's the place, and people are always stopping there setting up temporary tents type setup. And the Unicorn are still, to a degree, nomadic within their area. And that's looked at oddly by the rest of Rokugan. But look like this. The unicorn will raise cattle and eat steak. They will drink sake, yes. They will also drink kumis, fermented mare's milk. And those sorts of things just, in many ways, no matter how long the unicorn have been in Rokugan, no matter how long it's been since they returned, the traditions that they hold are still very heavily influenced by the Gaijin they interacted with in the 800 years they were gone. And so, because of that, they are always going to be outsiders. And in Rokugan, being an outsider is a bad thing. And so, this is a stigma the unicorn have to live with, that they're never going to quite fit in. They're forever going to be the square peg in the round holes that they're trying to be fit into. And that is the unicorn. I hope this video gives a understanding of them on a intuitive level. I don't like that I wasn't able to tell stories like I would for the other clans, but there really aren't stories for the unicorn like the other clans have. So, with that, next week I talk about the Mantis clan. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.